What's up, everyone? This is Crown Dragon with another UFC breakdown. Breaking down UFC Fight Night Armin Tsarukyan versus Beneil Dariush. At least from the standpoint of it being a UFC Fight Night card, this is actually pretty stacked. And so there are a couple of interesting fights on here, specifically four fights on the main card that I believe to be pretty intriguing. And so I'll discuss three of them, and I'll start with Rob Font versus Davison Figueiredo. A really good fight. Figueiredo's been busy in his sort of trilogy, quadrilogy, whatever you want to call it, with Brandon Moreno lately. And so he lost the last fight against Moreno. And Rob Font's last fight, I believe he fought Corey Sandhagen and lost pretty comfortably to Corey Sandhagen. And before that fight, he had just gotten off a victory against Adrian Yanez. Rob Font, knocked him out. And so when I look at this fight, I consider Rob. Obviously, he's going to have the size advantage. When you look at Davison Figueiredo, some people are suggesting that now that he's moving up in weight, he'll be able to more comfortably walk around. And so these are things that could benefit him. But over the course of a 3-round fight, I can definitely see Rob Font giving Davison Figueiredo issues with his boxing. Especially with the jab. I don't really consider Rob Font to be the most defensively responsible striker, though. And so it's interesting from that perspective. I'm really looking at this fight as 50-50. I have no favorite because I know how susceptible Rob Font is to getting caught, but I also know he has some power in his hands. And so that's an interesting fight. And then as the co-main event, we have Jalen Turner versus Bobby Green. And this is an extremely intriguing matchup. I don't have a dog in this fight. I like Jalen Turner and Bobby Green. Jalen Turner is on a 2-fight losing streak, though. He lost to Dan Hooker, and that fight was a little bit questionable. And then he also lost to Mateusz Gamrot, who was pretty much able to out wrestle him, if I'm not mistaken. And so when I look at the way he matches up with Bobby Green, I don't see him as this overwhelming favorite like he is. I think Jalen Green might be considered a negative 250 favorite, which is just a bit extreme. But we know Bobby Green on the other side has great hands, does like to keep his hands down, but doesn't really get caught too much. He's been caught. But Bobby Green's boxing, I believe his boxing to be better. I believe Jalen's issues could give Bobby Green some problems, and I believe Jalen could be problematic in grappling exchanges because of the length of his arms and just his overall physicality and attributes. If he finds that he's able to get Bobby Green in some advantageous grappling situations, he could choke him out or something of that nature. When I look at the fight, I definitely don't think it's as lopsided as the odds suggest. I guess I favor Jalen Turner, but only slightly. Because I know Bobby Green can outbox him, but it's going to be interesting to see. And then we have our main event, Armin Tsarukyan versus Beneil Dariush. And so Beneil Dariush lost his last fight against Charles Oliveira. He just didn't look right in that fight. No excuses, but he didn't look good. Charles Oliveira pretty much, dominated him. And then you have Armin Tsarukyan, who I believe is on a 2-fight win streak, or maybe a 1-fight win streak. He had that loss against Mateusz Gamrot, another elite grappler in the division. And both these guys are pretty elite grapplers. They're probably second-tier level grapplers in the division. If you consider someone like Islam Makhachev to be the first tier, then you would put the Armin Tsarukyans, the Mateusz Gamrots, the Beneils, the Charles Oliveira's on the second tier. And so this is an extremely interesting matchup. Who do I favor? I think I favor Armin. I believe Armin has the better wrestling. But I also believe Beneil probably has better hands. But we'll see how it goes. I do think that Beneil has probably a higher probability of getting a finish, whereas Armin may just be more suffocating and just dominate you for 5 rounds. And so we'll see. I think I slightly favor Armin in his grappling ability, his top control. I believe Beneil does have some very good takedown defense. Don't get it twisted. But I believe Armin is persistent enough such that once he gets Beneil down, he can keep him down and he won't give up on those takedowns. Now, should this stay on the feet, I favor Beneil Dariush. I think he's more explosive. I've never really been impressed with Armin Tsarukyan's hands. We had to see them a little bit when they were in stand-up exchanges with Mateusz Gamrot. And Mateusz, if I'm not mistaken, was getting the best of him. And so these are my thoughts on UFC Fight Night. It's a pretty stacked card. It's going to hold us over until the next week of cards. So this is Crown Dragon. Stay tuned for some more videos.